You get something, you're like, man, I really like this. This is like the best present ever. I think my buddy should have one of these. I think my wife should have one of these. I think everybody in the church should have one of these. So instead of just it being a bad thing to re-gift, you say, like I've got on my keychain, I've got a little key that looks like a key, but it's actually a little bitty pocket knife. I think Stacy's got one. Stevie's got one. There may be some other of y'all in here that have one. It's a really cool little thing. It looks exactly like a key. If you look at it on the keychain, you would never know that it was a knife. But it's actually about a little 2.5-inch blade on it. And it is great. I mean, you always need a knife for some things every once in a while. Okay? It's something that would be really good to re-gift to people. Okay? We have something that we carry around with us as Christians that is the best gift in the world that we are so scared to re-gift a lot of times. And that's what this whole sermon series is about. It's about re-gifting what has been gifted to us. That's what this whole thing is about, is that we have something that Christ has given to us that we should want to re-gift to everyone. And this morning,
welcome to Westside Emmanuel Baptist Church, the church that loves God and loves people. We're in the heart of Bogalusa with Bogalusa on our heart. We look forward to you joining us in person sometime soon as we worship the Lord together.
All right, sing it with us. God is able. God is able. He will never fail. He is Almighty God. Greater than all we see, greater than all we ask. He has done great things. Lifted up, He defeated the grave. Raised to life, our God is able. In His name, we overcome. For the Lord, our God is able. Time of celebration. This is the time that we know as Advent. It is a time that we celebrate not only the fact that Christ came, but that He is coming again. And so as they come to read Scripture and light this candle, today's candle reminds us of the hope that we have through Jesus Christ. And so I just want to make them welcome this morning.
We're going to read from Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on His shoulders, and He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for everything you've done for us. Thank you for blessing us, even though we don't always deserve it. Thank you for sending your Son, most importantly. And please help us day to day be better Christians. And thank you for watching over us and continue to watch over us through these holidays. In Jesus' name,
celebrate. And I wanted to tell you, first of all, I don't know, how many of you know who Lottie Moon is? So you've heard about her. Okay, she was in China. She was like 4'3". She was over there by herself, trying to get others to hear about Jesus. She was raised a Christian, a Southern Baptist, and but she rebelled against Christ until she hit college, and there she found Him. And she had such a love for the Lord that she wanted to tell others. She went to China, and she had a hard time getting them to trust her. So she started making cookies. She became known as the Cookie Lady. I've brought the recipe. There's some here. She made these special little tea cakes for everyone to, because the children would, they thought they were poison at first, so they wouldn't eat them. But they finally tasted and found out they were good, so children were following her everywhere. And once you have the children, you know the parents are going to be there to find out what the kids are up to. So that's how she was reaching so many. She ended up being there for 40 years. And she begged for help. Today we're going to talk about the Bagley family in Nepal. It's a whole family. And it has a picture of them climbing these hills and all, trying to reach people. And they even, the streets that line the city where Bradford and Sarah Bagley live were the kind of people in the United States would find to go four-wheeler ride. Go outside of that, and it's so much worse. Bradford says, and outside of that is exactly where they're trying to go. Getting to the 28 people groups in the mountains of Nepal takes a journey of weeks by car, plane, and trekking on foot. And that's if everything goes just right. It's a relationship-based, long-term type of work. There will be a lot of thankless work for a few years, but I do think we will see a lot of progress in our lifetime. It's just very slow. The fields are hard. But they've seen God use two things to soften hearts: a major earthquake and their children. They had their children with them. The couple has trekked for days at a time uphill with toddlers, even while Sarah was pregnant. People see our kids and they open up about their lives, about the children they lost in the earthquake, Sarah said. We are able to share the hope we have with them. And they ask you to pray for God to remove barriers as they hike to meet these unreachable groups. And that God will continue to open hearts in Nepal and raise up national believers who will boldly tell the gospel to others. The idea is to tell one, and they'll tell two more. You'll see little envelopes in front of you for the offering. And so far, there was a note she'd given me. I think she said $196 has been given so far. So, good start. Thank you.
Just give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. When I am alone, oh, when I am alone, oh, when
Called Regifting. How many of you in here, by show of hands, re-gift? Oh, y'all all a bunch of liars up in the church. Man, I know good and well at some point in time you have gotten something, whether it was a dirty Santa party or it was your in-laws or maybe it was even one of your kids, gave you something at one time and you said, oh, an avocado, it's so nice. Let me give it to somebody else. Now, let's try this again. How many of you in here, by show of hands, have re-gifted something in your life? Just about everybody in here this time. Y'all finally being honest. Thank y'all. All right, so let me tell you about my mom, okay? My mom has a upstairs room in her house that used to be my bedroom, so it's actually a pretty good-sized room that has a big walk-in closet, and it is entirely full of gifts, okay? So at the end of this year, when Bell McRae's, JCPenney's, puts all their Christmas stuff that, you know, they come out with, all the tables and all the little blankets and little silver stuff and stuff that you give to teachers every year, all them little gifts that nobody really wants, she has a closet full of them. So every year, if there's like a dirty Santa party or something like that, you know, that's where we go and get them because we don't have to buy them. Mom's got a whole closet full. The kids will go up there and they'll find little knick-knack things like, you know, they got the little Swiss Army knife that looks like a spoon and a fork and a knife put together. You seen those? Okay, she's got a few of them. The kids have had those at some point in time out in the yard playing with them. You know, so we re-gift those things. Have you ever re-gifted something and you gave it back to the person that gave it to you? It's terrible when that happens. You know, you get it and you're like, you know, I've had this in the closet for like 3 years. I don't remember who even gave it to me anymore. So let me give it to you for this. And they're like, hey, didn't I buy this for you like a year or two ago? No, that wasn't you. Somebody else gave that to me. Sometimes it's terrible to re-gift things. But sometimes you get something, you're like, man, I really like this. You know, this is like the best present ever. You know, I think my buddy should have one of these. I think my wife should have one of these. I think everybody in the church should have one of these. So instead of just it being a bad thing to re-gift, you know, you say, you know, like I've got on my keychain, I've got a little key that looks like a key, but it's actually a little bitty pocket knife. I think Stacy's got one. Stevie's got one. There may be some other of y'all in here that have one. It's a really cool little thing. It looks exactly like a key. If you look at it on the keychain, you'd never know that it was a knife, but it's actually about a little 2.5-inch blade on it, and it is great. I mean, you always need a knife for some things every once in a while, okay? It's something that would be really good to re-gift to people, okay? We have something that we carry around with us as Christians that is the best gift in the world that we are so scared to re-gift a lot of times. And that's what this whole sermon series is about. It's about re-gifting what has been gifted to us. That's what this whole thing is about, is that we have something that Christ has given to us that we should want to re-gift to everyone. And this morning, what we're going to start with is a question that I have for you that I want you to think about throughout this whole thing today as I'm up here and I'm speaking to y'all, is this question. Not what is the place of missions in my life, budget, and church, but what is the place in my life and in my budget and in my church for missions. That's what I want you guys to think about today. I'm gonna talk through some things. We're going to talk about missions a little bit and try to kick this all off. And I want you to look at this in a different way than missions in a worldwide view. But I want you to think about it of what is your mission? What is our mission as the church? And what is our life supposed to look like when we are on mission? Okay, so we're going to look at this a little bit different because I know you're thinking like right now about, okay, well, there's a mission thing coming up next weekend. You know, I could go to that. You know, we're giving a mission, Lottie Room mission offering right now. There's different mission offerings that we give out through the year. Okay, those are all great. But what is your mission? What is your individual mission in your life? And have you ever thought about that? And how does it play into your life and your budget and in our church? So, this morning, if you'll turn to Matthew chapter 28. There's 3 verses at the end of Matthew 28, starting in verse 18, if you will. While you turn there, if you will stand with me in the honor of reading God's Word this morning. This is Jesus speaking to his disciples. And this is what he says. It says, Jesus approached and spoke to them, saying, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you all the days until the end of the age. Lord, would you sung? I pray this morning, Lord, that you will be that rushing wind, that you can just feel me, that you will speak through me this morning, and that it will not be me that's seen up here, but it will be you, Lord. Be with us this morning as we look in your word and we figure out what our mission for you is. That's your son's name. Amen. So, let me just give you a definition of what a mission actually is, okay? So, mission, just the word mission, is the intentional or overall purpose and goal of the church. That's what we should have. We should have an intentional and an overall purpose of our church and our life. We should have some sort of mission that we say, okay, I became a Christian. What do I do next? Okay, this is my mission. Okay? We should have that. Our mission as a church, our mission as an individual that is a Christian, our mission should be to bring other people to Christ. That is our mission. That is the reason behind everything we do in church. That's the reason behind everything we do outside of this church is to bring other people to know Christ. And if that is not your mission, then you need to step back. We need to step back and we need to talk about it a little bit. Because if you're not having that mission, if you don't have that mission, and that's what's up front in your life, then there's a problem. Because you should be re-gifting what you've been given, and therefore that means that your mission is re-gifting that and telling other people about Christ. That's your mission. Now, for the church and missions, that's where we see the definition for missions would be all the ways that the church seeks to carry out their mission in the world. That's what missions is. It's all the different things we do. It's like next weekend when we go to New Orleans. That's a mission. That's missions. That's a project of mission. That's a way that we go out and we share Christ in the world by doing things for people. And in doing that, by feeding the homeless, we'll have encounters to where we can help them. We can encounter them and we can re-gift what Christ has given us and we can tell them about Christ. Operation Christmas Trial is a mission that we do. It's one of the missions that we do. It's by just simply filling up a shoebox of random objects that kids need. enters into them, they get it, and they get to learn about who Christ is by the people that go and speak to them. By you just doing that simple thing. There's the Lottie Moon mission offering. I'm going to give you some numbers here in a minute about how many people are really in the world and things, and how that goes towards that. Because Lottie Moon, every bit of that goes straight to helping missionaries. So, is missions biblical? And I know this morning we're going to get through a few things this morning, then we'll really get into the sermon. But let's just get some things behind us. Is missions biblical? God gave us the Bible so that we can know Him, so we can enter into a relationship with Him, and so that we can tell other people about who He is. Is missions biblical? Absolutely. From Genesis 1 through Revelation 22, every bit of it in the entire Bible, every bit of it is pointing towards Him so that we can have that relationship with Him, and so that in return we can tell others about Him. So, the problem is a lot of you, and myself included, have probably thought at one time, well, we have enough lost people, right here in Bogalusa. We have enough lost people right here in the state of Louisiana. Why do we need to go anywhere else? Because the Bible tells us to. Now, Jesus said there in Matthew, He said, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations." He didn't say just the people that are close around you, just the people that are in your city. He said, go and preach to all nations and make them disciples of me. Okay, so let me give you some numbers real quick, and then we're going to get into a guy that actually did this. Okay, first thing is the NAMB is North America Mission Board. Okay, if you hear that, that's what that means. Okay, in the United States, about 66% of the population believe in God. In the United States, us being in God we trust, and everything we say that has anything to do with America, God is put on it usually at some point. If you pull out a dollar bill out of your pocket or a quarter or anything, it's going to say, "In God we trust." 66% of our population believe in God. 17% of that rarely attend church. And 44% never participate in prayer, Bible study, or worship. In Louisiana, we have over 1,600 Southern Baptist churches and 64 parishes. For us sending missionaries out, there's approximately 30,000 missionaries through various Christian sending organizations. Okay, there's about 30,000 in the world, missionaries. 3,600 of those are from the MIB, the International Mission Board, which is by the Southern Baptists. 3,600 of the 30,000 missionaries are from Southern Baptists. That's what Lottie Moon goes to, is towards the International Mission Board, through the Southern Baptists, to help them go out and pay for them to be missionaries. Here's where the numbers get real astonishing. There is 11,490 let me say that again. 11,490 people groups in the world. I don't know what's going on here. I just put new batteries in it. Okay, 11,490 people groups. There's 6,700 of those that are unreached. Okay, unreached meaning that they may have actually heard the gospel, but there's no actual missionaries that are in those people groups. 3,000 of those 11,000 have never even been engaged. They've never had anything spoken to them about who Christ is. Of that 3,000, there's 3,000 people groups that have never even been engaged in anything whatsoever that has to do with Christianity. You realize that's over 3 billion people. And all we have is 30,000 missionaries. So once again, that's what I'm going to ask you. And I'm not doing this for like a pitch for missions or anything to try to get us all to run out and run to Africa or something like that. I just want us to be real and figure out what our mission is in our life. Because that's the question. It's not about how missions play into your life and your budget and in our church. It's about what is my place, what is the place for my life and my budget and my church in missions. That's what the question really is. So, if you have your Bibles, I'm not going to make you stand up again, but turn to Acts chapter 9. And we're going to look at how this is really supposed to play out in our lives and how this really looks in one person's life. So as I read through this, just follow along. Acts chapter 9, starting in verse 3. Here's what it says. Now as he proceeded, it happened that when he approached Damascus, suddenly a light from the heavens flashed around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to them, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? So he said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus whom you persecuted. But get up and enter into the city, and it will be told to you what you must do. Now the men who were traveling there together stood speechless, because they heard a voice but saw no one. So Paul got up from the ground, but although his eyes were open, he could not see anything. And they led him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus. And he was unable to see for 3 days, and he did not eat or drink. So here's Paul. A lot of us know the story of Paul, right? We know that before he was Paul, he was actually Saul. He was out persecuting Christians. He was killing Christians because that's what he was told he was able to do. He was given the authority and the papers that he could go in and he could murder any Christians that he wanted to. Round them all up, throw them in jail, do whatever he wanted to with them. And on his way to do this, this light shines on him. And it's Jesus speaking to him. So at one time, Paul was called by Christ to change. And he tells him, go to the city and wait, and I'm going to tell you what you must do. So while this is happening, while Paul's waiting, Jesus speaks to someone else. His name is Ananias. Now verse 10, this is what it says. Now there was a certain disciple in Damascus named Ananias, and the Lord told to him in a vision, Ananias, he said, Behold, here I am, Lord. And the Lord said to him, Get up and go to the street called Straight, in the house of Judas. Look for a man named Saul of Tarsus. For behold, he is praying. And he has seen a vision, a man named Ananias coming and placing his hands on him that he might regain his sight. But Ananias replied to the Lord, saying, Lord, I have heard from many people about this man, how much harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem. And here he has the authority from the chief priest to tie up all who call upon your name. But the Lord said to him, Go, because this man is my chosen instrument to carry my name before Gentiles and kings and the sons of Israel. For I must show him how much he must suffer for my sake. So Ananias departed, and he entered into the house, and placing his hands on him said, Brother Saul, the Lord Jesus, who appeared to you on the road by which you came, has sent me so that you might regain your sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And immediately something like scales fell up from his eyes, and he regained his sight, and he got up and was baptized. Verse 19, and after taking food, he regained his strength, and he was with the disciples in Damascus for several days. And here's what verse 20 says. And immediately, he began proclaiming Jesus in the synagogues, this one is the Son of God. What is your life like? What is our mission in life? See, Paul was pretty clearly put in front of him. I don't know if you've been down that road and all of a sudden a bright light hits you in the eyes and a voice from heaven comes and you see Jesus in it and he starts speaking to you and says, hey, this is what I want you to do from now on. I don't know if you've had that like close encounter thing. There's probably not very many of us in here that have. Because most likely nowadays, we've been driving a car and a bright light shine, you'd be off in a ditch somewhere and seeing, Jesus and angels and stuff. But for Saul, it was totally different. But it's not that different from our life. See, because here's what happens. In Saul's life, there was 3 things that happened to him, and there's these same 3 things apply to us today. First, there's a call to salvation. Paul was seen, he was on the road, Jesus called out to him and said, Saul, come to me. There was a call to salvation. there was a clear call to salvation. At some point in your life, if you became a Christian, there was a call to salvation. You were sitting in a pew, you were sitting in a youth conference, you were somewhere, and your hands turned white, your knuckles turned white, and it was everything you could do not to move, but at the same time you wanted to move as fast as you could to the front and take somebody by the hand and say, hey, I need to do this now. I need to change my life. Things aren't going the way that I thought they were going, and I need to change what's going on because obviously I can't do it by myself. And there was a call to salvation. If you are a Christian, if you are a professing Christian today, at some point you had a call to salvation. So what happens next? Is that it? You know, I'm a Christian now. I come to church. I give my tithe. I sit on a pew. I go when they want things done. I help decorate for Christmas. Is that it? No. This morning we talked in the youth about the good soil and seeds and stuff, and there's people that are like that. There's people that come every Sunday morning, they sit in church, profess to be a Christian, and that's it. It's as far as their life goes, and it's as far as it ever will. Because they don't care anything else about the mission. But we can't be that way. We've got to know that after this call of salvation, there is a call to service. That's what in Matthew Jesus was doing. He was telling his disciples, telling everyone that claims to be his disciple, that it's not an option. It's not well, I know who you are, Jesus, so that's good with me. No, it's a go tell them who I am. That's what it was in Matthew. He says, go ye therefore and teach all nations. It wasn't if you feel like doing this, you can do it. No, it was a go. A go. While you're going is what that actual go means. It doesn't mean like when you go over there or when you go to this place. No, it means while you are going. So in that form, that go that he's talking about, it means everybody that you come in contact on your way, that you may be going, to Africa. You may be going to New Orleans. You may be going to a different place to preach or be an actual missionary. But on your way, you're supposed to go and tell everyone on your way who Christ is. That's what the call is. That's what after you become a Christian, that's what your service is that you are called to go and do. You are called to go and tell who Christ is and who he is in your life. That's for all of us. That's for everyone in here. Now, there's some of us in here that have specific calls on their life, where they've been called to be a pastor or a youth minister or a song minister or a missionary. There are certain people in here that have had that call on their life. And that's a little bit different. It's a little different call. They're held to a higher standard. But for everyone in all churches, not just this church, in all churches, the goal of every church should be that people are coming to know Christ by the people that are inside the church because they are going and telling who Christ is. It is not the pastor's job to tell everybody who God is. It's not the youth minister's job to tell every kid who Christ is. It's not the children's minister's job to do it. It's not the song minister's job to do it. It's not the missionary's job to tell everybody who Christ is. It's the church. And the church isn't just this little building. We were driving through Covington the other day, and there was one of the little shopping centers that said church, inspired church or something. And Joseph Clark said, oh, that's a weird church. I said, why is it a weird church? She said, because it don't look like a church house. I said, baby, church is everywhere. Church isn't this building. Yeah, we call this our church. But the church is us. The church is you and me. The church is the people that's in First Baptist and the people that's down the road in Covington. That's the church. That's who's supposed to be going and telling. And we're supposed to be going and telling because we're called to this mission. Amen. We're called to preach this mission. See, Paul was actually told that his mission for him was to go and was to be filled, if I can find it again where I put it, that his actual mission was for him to go and be the one that told the Gentiles and the kings and the other Jews about who Christ was. That's what he was supposed to do. That was his actual mission that God told him, this is what I want you to do. our mission hadn't changed. Our mission hasn't changed from when Paul was there to where we are now. That our mission still is to go and tell who Christ is to everyone we come in contact with. But that last verse there is the one I really want you to think about. Verse 20. When Paul had done these things, when he had accepted Christ, figured out what the service of his life was going to be, he didn't wait. He didn't just go to church for another 10, 15 years. You know, he didn't just sit around and say, well, when the time comes and the opportunity is there. No, immediately, that word there, immediately, he started preaching. He started telling people about who the Son of God was. And we could get into a whole different study about who the Son of God is on a different day. We can talk about that, and I can show you the importance of what that phrase right there, the Son of God, means. But for them in that day and age, the Son of God and proclaiming that Jesus Christ was the Son of God was just phenomenal. It was something that meant that you were against everything that their government had to offer. And here, this guy, here Saul is, with the papers in his hands that says he can go and tie up any Christians that he wants to. And here just a few days later, standing up and saying, no, I used to want to tie you up for this, but now I want to share who Jesus Christ is and who the Son of God really is in my life. Why should our mission be any different? Here's what we're going to close with. The definition of a missionary call. And I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to walk through real quick. But I want you to just listen to this. It says the missionary call includes an awareness of the lost world, the commands of Christ, a concern for the lost, a radical commitment to God, a passionate desire, the Spirit's gifting, and an indescribable yearning that motivates beyond all understanding. And that is the actual definition to what a missionary call would be. But here's what I want to know. In your life, do you have an awareness for the people that are lost around you in this world? Think about it. In your life, does it bother you when someone that you know is lost? Do you follow the commands of Christ? Do you follow what Christ wants you to do each and every day? Do you get up in the morning and you say from the morning, that first thing in the morning when you wake up is, Lord, I surrender to you whatever it is that I have today, that everything is for you. And at the end of the day, you lay your head down at night and you say, Lord, I couldn't do any more today because everything I did was for you. Do you follow the commands of Christ? Do you go and tell about who He is? Are you concerned for lost people? Do you care anything about your brother down the road, your neighbor next to you that's dying and going to hell? Have you made any kind of radical commitment to God? Have you made any commitment to God whatsoever? Maybe it's not even radical. Maybe it's just, God, I'm going to start reading my Bible every day. God, I'm going to start telling people that I come in contact about you. God, I'm going to share you with my kids. Have you made any commitments to God? Do you have any passionate desires in your life? Is there anything in your life that you are passionate about, that God has gave you a passion about, and in doing that, He can take that passion that you have for that, and He can turn it into your work, into His work, so that He prospers, so that He grows, so that in the passion that He's already put in your life, He can turn it into something that's for Him. Do you have that? Are you using the Spirit's gifts? Are you using what God has given you? And the last one. Is there any indescribable yearning that motivates you beyond all understanding? See, I took a missions class a couple months ago, and it made me have a whole different outlook on what missions really were. And it made me have a different outlook on what missions were and what a mission for my own life was. And I started to realize that for a church in a whole, that we have a real problem with mission. That we have forgotten what our mission really was. That if we don't have a mission, that we're just dying and doing nothing. That if you don't have a mission as an individual Christian, if you don't have a mission that is for Christ and for other people coming to know Him, then you are doing absolutely nothing to further His kingdom, and you are dying slowly. Do you have an indescribable yearning that motivates you beyond all understanding? You know, the thing about it is, when Paul stood up in front of those people, when he stood up there at the end, you go on and you can read after verse 20, and the people start asking, who is this guy? Isn't he the one that was just like persecuting Christians? Isn't he the one that came to tie people up? Isn't he the one that was doing all these terrible things? They start asking and wondering who he is, and asking each other, we can't listen to him. Why is he saying these things now? And all throughout Paul's journey later in life, it was there the whole time. That indescribable yearning that motivated him beyond anything. He was chained up, he was tortured, he was beat, he was put in jails, he was tied to different guards, and the whole time, his mission never changed. The whole time, whether he was in front of a church, he was on the side of the road, or if he was in a jail cell, his whole time, his mission was to tell someone about Christ. Amen. Why should we be any different? I don't see none of us in here that's tied up in a jail cell. I don't see any of us in here that, we have hard times, but it's not that bad. None of y'all in here look like y'all been beat this morning and tied up or tortured or anything like that. So why are we so scared? Why are we so afraid to take the gift that Christ gave us, to take the gift that we have of Him, and just share it with someone else? When Yeti cups came out, everybody wanted to buy a Yeti cup and go give it to everybody else. You had businesses that were getting their names engraved on them and logos and everything else so they could gift them to everybody else, right? Because that was like the biggest and best thing. Now you've got 40 different brands that are exactly like Yeti, but everybody wants one and everybody uses one because they work good, right? We have something that can't be rebranded, that can't be changed, that there's not a patent on it because it's the only thing there ever will be and only thing that's ever going to make sense, but yet we won't take it and re-gift it to someone else. Because we won't listen to what our mission is. We won't let God have control of our life. We won't sit back and say, God, I surrender. I wave the white flag over my life. And I give everything I have to you so that my mission and your mission are the same. Because that's what God's mission is. It's for everyone to know who He is. That's the whole reason He sent His Son to die on the cross for us, was so that He could make a way for us to know Him and have a personal relationship with Him. And in doing that, it means that we serve Him, we follow Him, and in following Him, we go and we tell others about it.
Friends, thank you for joining us today at Westside Emmanuel Baptist Church, the church that loves God and loves people. We hope you'll be able to join us this coming Sunday at 10:30 a.m. or 6 o'clock in the evening time. Wednesdays at 6 o'clock for our prayer service, and we also have youth and children's activities as well. We look forward to seeing you. Hope to meet you in person here in Bogalusa with Bogalusa on our heart. We hope to see you soon.